Hey guys, welcome back to Noble Garage. I know it's been a while, but I've been getting lots of track time and I'm starting to get really tired of sliding around my seat, so picked up this set of Recaro track seats. So today we're going to vacuum. I have a fabric cleaner. We're going to totally clean them off and then we're going to install them in the car. Okay, I gave them a quick vacuum off, looking a little bit better, but I bought this Bissell Little Green Pro, so we'll see how it does at getting some of the stains out. What I'm going to do first is I just took one of the mats here out of the car. There's some stains in it, so I'm going to try it on here just to see how it works before I try it on the seat for the first time. Well, this worked really good. As you can see, the water is chocolate milk brown. Alright, I got the seats out here in the sun drying. They turned out really nice. So I'll give you a full look at them once they're dry. I'm going to let them sit out here for an hour or so, fully dry because the fabric's quite wet, and then we can work on adapting them to the car to fit in there. So it's the next day now, and they fully dried up. It was quite a bit of work to clean them, but that Bissell fabric cleaner worked quite well. So give you a look at them, you can see all of the stains came out and the leather just restored quite nicely. So to talk about these seats a bit more, these are out of an Evo 10. I have quite a long torso, so I had quite a hard time finding seats that were tall enough for me, that the seat pass-throughs here for the harnesses would be above my shoulders. So I was able to find these, and these are probably the most supportive and bolstered factory seats that I could find. I looked at Subaru STIs and a bunch of other cars that had factory seats, as well as looking at Sparcos and Recaro standalone track seats, and these were the best option for me. The only other option with such high backs would be the Sparco Pilot, but that's a partially halo seat, and because I drive this car in the street a lot, I wasn't too keen to get that. So for mounting, they have the tabs here for the Evo 10, but they implement a very standard seat slider and mounting system, so I'm hoping I can just cut off these tabs. They're just riveted in with solid rivets, so I'm going to drill those out, and then I'm hoping that I can just bolt these directly onto the seat bases that I got. So I'll grab that and show it to you now. So I bought this planted seat bracket. I was going to fabricate mine myself, but it was easier just to buy this, so I only bought one. But if I'm able to adapt the seat without having to make and weld custom mounts, then I'll just buy one for the passenger side as well. So I haven't test fitted this yet, but that'll be next. I also picked up this energy harness bar. So I'm going to be mounting this to the factory seatbelt bolt locations on the B pillars, and then putting Sparco race harnesses on it. So what I'm going to do next is take out these Torx bits to remove the rails from the seat itself, and then I can drill out the rivets so that I can put bolts through those holes. Alright, so I got the seat rail off. Here's the seat, just bolts on each side. It's a very familiar rail if you've ever seen some of the Sparco sliders or universal sliders. It just has these tabs riveted on for the Evo. So what I'm going to do now, as you can see here, that side's pretty dirty, but there's a solid rivet there, so I'm just going to drill that out, and then I'll be able to use that hole to bolt it to the base plate. So that's one down. So you can see the hole there. There's the solid rivet that I drilled out, and then I just smack this off. So we've got 3 more to go, so I'm going to go get those done now. So here's one of the seat rails. I've got all the tabs off. A couple of them I actually had to cut off. But what I've done is I fitted these button head cap screws in here, and the rails slide over them, so that's perfect. And I just went and test fitted in the car, and this distance here lines up perfectly with the holes in the planted mount. So it's like Recaro maintained a standard mounting distance even though they adapted it to the Evo. So I'm going to get this and the other rail back on the seat, and we'll go test fit in the car. Here's the bottom of the seat after it's all assembled. Just looks like your standard aftermarket seat rails now. So that turned out really good, and all the bolt holes I think will line up perfectly. So let's test fit this in the car now. Alright, I'm in the car now, so one of the goals with these seats is to see if I can get a bit more headroom, or if I'm going to lose any. So right now if I sit up, I have maybe fingers width, so you know, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch here. So we'll see with the Recaros if I lose any of that, or if I can mount the seat lower. If I lose that, I'll have to try and maybe floor mount the seat. I'm going to try and retain the sliders if I can, but we'll see when we test fit. Alright, so I got it all bolted in here. Fits really nicely. Lots of clearance by the B pillar here. So I bolted it up with the sliders. So that all works. But I've sat in it, and unfortunately my head is too close to the roof. So I think what I'm going to have to do is delete the sliders, not use this planted bracket, and build my own mount. So as you saw before, it bolts on here, and there's another couple bolts back there. So if you look under the seat, there's a decent amount of space to be gained if I make my own mounts and get rid of these sliders. So I think that's what I'm going to have to do, unfortunately. But I can't do that here. I'll have to do that at the shop and weld up something. So for now, I think I'm going to take this out and put the stock seat back in. It's another weekend and we're at the shop here. Got the seat sitting in the car. I took all those rails off, so this seat's just going to get bolted right to the floor. So I already started and I made these little brackets. So what's going to happen here, I'll just lift the seat up. So this bracket's going to get bolted like that, and that's going to go into that there on the seat. So the seat's going to sit, you know, right off the floor here, and then just a bolt going through there, and that'll get me as close to the ground as possible. Okay, so here's an update on the seats. Quite a bit of work has gone into this, and time has passed since I last filmed. I've got these front ones done. I've made rear brackets in a similar manner. And I've also been working on the seatbelt mounts. So you can see here what I did is I took the seatbelt bracket off of the Lancer seats, modified it slightly, made some bolt holes, and that's what's going to hold the lap belt and the stock seatbelt mounts. So these are almost done. What I'm going to do is just smooth out the mounts, round all the corners, and then paint them. And then that should be it, and I've done both seats now. So I apologize for the time jump, but it's basically been a lot of under the seat work where you can't see much, and then just a bunch of test fitting, grinding, welding, repeat until these are all good. Another update is now many hours later. I've grinded and smoothed out all the corners on these, cleaned them off, and painted them all black so they won't rust. So the next step now is I've moved on to starting installing the harness bar before I fully bolt in the seats. So I'll show you what I've done on that. So what I've already done so far on this is I took out the seatbelt bolts here. I drilled this slightly larger and then the bolt was able to slip through it. I did that on both sides. So I got the bar in here. And then for these rods, they've got this ball joint type rod end on it. So unfortunately that's a bit smaller diameter than the bottom seatbelt bolt here. So what I've made is a little tab to set that back, and then I can put a bolt through there, and then the lap belt here that fits nicely behind where the seatbelt stock location is there. So what I've got to do now is I'm going to go out and get all the right bolts and everything. I need a bit longer for the seatbelt bolt, and then once I have all that, I should be able to bolt everything back in, and I'll give you a look at once everything's in here. So I'm back from the store, the hardware that I needed. So I got a new bolt for the seatbelt mount. And there you can see the tab that I made. It's about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches between the bolt centers. And then got a 30mm bolt to go through this rod end with a nylock nut on the other side, and it's just the perfect spacing to fit that nut between the side of the frame there and the mount. So that's all looking really good. I've done the same on the other side. And then I also got new hardware for up top here that's the right length. So everything's loose right now. I'm going to get everything where I want it and then tighten it all down, and then I'll be able to put the seats in. So I got this side all bolted up. I put the tab in the most downward position there. So this is all tight now. And then I cut the plastic piece that goes over that. So I cut it out a bit here, and I've already got the other one on the other side here to show you. So this one's already on, but just clearanced it enough so that the lap belt would fit through and this rod connection would work without interfering with it. So now I'm going to go put the other side on, and then it's time to try the seats. So I got the tools and everything out of here, and then I gave it a vacuum. Ready for the seats to go in. Just put the mounts on the seat for the final time. So you can see they turned out really nice. A lot of hours went into these. So I'm going to get in the car and then tighten everything down, and then we'll move on to the passenger side. After all that work, here we finally have them installed. Came together really nicely in the end. I'm really happy with how they're fitting. They're as low as possible. I got the harness bar in there as well. I haven't wrapped the straps yet, but I will. So I'll give you a look at how they mounted under the seat here. So pretty simple and clean, but it was a lot of work to get these mounts perfect, to get the seat as low as possible. And I also drilled holes here because I'm going to mount a fire extinguisher under the seat. So there's a hole in this mount here to allow for that. And I'll show you the back. There's the back bracket. And on the other side, similar. So these are right on the floor, as low as possible, giving me the max headroom. And the harness bar fits well. For anyone wondering, this is a NRG harness bar. I'll put the width of it in the description if you're wanting to look into getting one of these yourself. And the seats, these are out of an Evo 10. Factory Recaro seats. Well, that's it for this time. Can't wait to get to the track and test these out. If you like the video, give it a like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Take it easy.